the planet Arrakis, home of the most important substance in the entire universe, the spice melange. The spice is life, the spice must flow. And because of this, the Emperor of the known universe has set out a challenge to the great houses.
The house that produces the most spice will control Dune. There are no set territories and no rules of engagement.
And 3 houses have answered his call.
The noble Atreides, the insidious Ordos, and the evil Harkonnen.
And who will win? Only you can decide as we check out Dune 2. And welcome to Goldfish on Games. Dune 2, The Battle for Arrakis, or as it was also known as, Dune 2, The Building of a Dynasty, was developed by Westwood Studios and published originally in 1992 for MS-DOS, which is the version I have here. This was later ported to the Amiga, where I first played it, and then later to the Acorn Archimedes. There was also a Mega Drive release, that we'll talk about it in more detail later on. And for most of this video we're going to concentrate on the DOS version, because that was where it was aimed at and got the most updates. But I grew up with the Amiga one initially, so we might have to see more of that as we go as well. The game opened up with an amazing cutscene that we've seen parts of already. Now we start the game by having to pick the house that you want to play, and the Bene Gesserit will give you a rundown of their history to help you make your choice. Now outside of each having their own colour, they also have unique mentats, who will provide you with information as well as your missions. And we start off with some very simple ones: harvest the spice, which acts as a bit of a tutorial.
Yes, sir.
As the game will give you some tips on how to get going. But anyone that's played an RTS before will get the basics of the base building and the economy, as this effectively laid down the groundwork for all that would follow. We have wind traps that provide the power that will then allow your buildings to operate. The spice, which is the orange dust on the sand, is collected by a harvester and then turned into money at the refinery. But how you control the game might be a little bit odd.
Infantry out.
More so if you've only played the games that were made after this, as you have to enter a building to add anything to its build queue. Movement is also not quite as streamlined as it would later become, as you have to select a unit, then you have to use one of the buttons on the side to tell it what you want to do. Like movement, attacking, guarding, or if it's the harvester, harvest.
Reporting.
Then you get to click on the map where you want it to do that action.
Affirmative. Reporting.
But for more advanced users, there's also keyboard shortcuts. You also have to tell each unit individually what you want to do. There is no group select here.
Acknowledge. Reporting. Acknowledge.
Now this does feel a bit clunky these days, but this was one of the first RTS games to come around.
Warning. Enemy unit approaching from the east.
Reporting. Acknowledge. Reporting. Acknowledge. Reporting. Affirmative.
On completing the first few missions, your allegiance will be called into question, and the only way you can prove that you are not a spy is to successfully answer a test. Now where do we get this knowledge? Why, from the manual, of course. Yes, this is the copy protection system. Now inside this surprisingly deep box, we find the game on 4 high-density discs, but it also later came on CD, and this is the budget Hit Squad release that I got in the 90s. But finally we find the all-important manual, which inside we will find the details of all the units and buildings, and that is where the answers to the questions will lie. I do enjoy this style of copy protection as it helps you get more detailed knowledge on the game. After this, you get to see the current state of play on the planet, and then get to choose which territory you will attack next. Which I'm sure goes against what the Emperor said at the start.
There are no set territories.
But either way, from here on, the missions mostly become the same, just on different maps, with just a single goal, and that is to wipe out the other faction. At the start, this might just be you against a single house, but deeper into the game, the others will start to gang up on you, leading to an epic 3 versus 1 fight at the end. There are also the odd cutscene thrown in as you go, but these are mostly about how the other houses are plotting against you with the Emperor. But for majority of the time, it's just you and the Mentat going at it alone. The Amiga version is mostly the same as the PC, but with a few bits trimmed down. Mostly in the graphics department, so the cutscenes are a little shorter and the artwork has a little less colour, and if you're playing on a stock 500 it is significantly slower with a far more aggressive unit cap. But at the time, we had no idea about this, as this was the one that we used to play all the time. Well, it was until I got that budget release for PC that I found out about all those little animated touches that I hadn't seen before.
Yes, sir.
Now, I would find it hard to recommend this version over the DOS one. But if all you had was an Amiga, then this was a great way to play it.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Dune 2 set much of the groundwork for the genre when it came to base building, as you can find so many of the archetypal buildings here. From the support structures like silos and radar stations, to the unit productions with barracks, light and heavy unit factories. And after a few missions, you even get the chance to upgrade some of these buildings that will give you access to new items. It's just a shame you have to do it every single mission.
Harkonnen harvester deployed. Construction.
But what makes this game a little bit more unique is the fact that you can only build on rocky outcrops. And you're also meant to place down Plaz Creek slabs first. Now this can take a little while to build, particularly for the larger buildings. But thankfully, after a few missions, you can unlock the 4x4 blocks. Now you can build without them, as they'll start off with less health, and they'll also slowly erode over time.
Construction complete. Radar activated.
To protect your base from enemy attacks, we have a number of turrets, one of which has rocket launchers so it can take out flying units, as well as walls.
Destroyed.
Now these, along with the slabs, can be used to set up your defences a long way away from your base, and depending on the map, you might even be able to make it all the way to the enemy base. One of the more interesting buildings is the Starport, which allows you to buy units from the Spacing Guild,
Harkonnen unit
whose
destroyed.
prices have been effectively randomised, so you might get lucky and find a unit at a rock bottom price, or they might be far more than it would take to build. But you can buy as much stock as they have, and they'll all arrive at once, so if you need to build an army quickly, it can be very useful,
Destroyed.
and it can be a good way of getting units that you don't have a building for, such as buying some carryalls if you've not built the high-tech centre.
Atreides unit deployed. Ordos unit destroyed. Atreides unit deployed. Construction complete.
With a game this influential, it got quite a number of fan remakes over the years. I've really enjoyed checking these out, as some attempt to be as close to the original as possible, where others like to add in improvements.
Affirmative.
It's amazing how much easier the game becomes when you can group select your units,
Acknowledged.
or even queue up multiple units to be built in a row.
Yes, sir. Infantry out. Yes, sir. Moving acknowledged. Yes, sir.
So if you're new to Dune 2, then getting one of these and then providing it with the game data might be the best way to start.
Acknowledged.
The two main ones that I've been using for this video are Dune Legacy, which adds the most changes, and Open Dune, which tries to be far more like the original, but it does have some optional bug fixes as well that you can enable. As with any good RTS, there are a wide range of units to use, with each side getting a few unique ones as well, so they're not just colour swaps. You tend to start off with infantry, that while not the best in combat, and they also have a habit of being run over by tracked units, do have some special features. And that is they can be ordered to enter a building, which will do damage to it unless its health is in the red zone, at which point they'll be taken over. For light units we have the quads and trikes, with the Ordos getting a special faster trike, and the Harkonnen, well, they just ignore them completely, as who would want a weakly armoured fast unit. There are also two forms of tank, the single and dual cannon versions. The assault tank will end up being one of your main weapons in the game, as it can take quite a beating and dish out a lot of punishment. But you don't have to build huge armies, as there's also the missile tank. These have a huge range, but they also have a minimum range, so if you try to attack something that's too close, they will tend to miss. So careful positioning is important, as well as backing them up with some other units.
Affirmative. Reporting.
Harkonnen unit destroyed.
Acknowledged.
All sides get the carryalls. These are the flying transports that help get your harvesters to and from the spice. But the Atreides and Ordos also get the Ornithopters. You don't get to directly control these, so they can be a little tricky to use, and they have a horrible habit of aggroing the enemy, which can cause no end of issues if you're not ready. But in the hands of the AI, these are brutal. Each side also gets a special unit. For the Ordos, it's a missile launcher that can take over enemy units.
Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative.
The Harkonnen get the Devastator tank, which is a far more powerful version of the assault tank, but also slower. Oh, and it's also powered by atomics, and when it's almost dead, it will explode. The Atreides get the Sonic Tank, a fast and powerful sonic wave that will travel through buildings and units, but it will affect friends and foe alike, so make sure you have nothing in front of it if you want to keep them.
Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Reporting.
You should also be very careful while moving your units around the map, as when they're travelling across the sand, well, the sandworms can show up and follow the rhythmic movements of passing units, and with very little effort, swallow them whole. You can drive them away with concentrated firepower, but only ever attempt that from the safety of rock, as you stand no chance on the sand.
Acknowledged.
Harkonnen unit destroyed.
As mentioned at the very beginning of the video, there was a Mega Drive release. And it's a bit of an odd one, as it's not a direct port of the Amiga version. It's been completely reworked for the console. From having an even shorter intro, to having the in-game graphics all being drawn top down. But don't think they skimped on the presentation, as the mission select screen is now very nicely done. But really, you want to know how it controls, right? And the answer is, surprisingly well. This very much feels like a stepping stone between Dune 2 and Command & Conquer, as you can select units and then freely move them around the map and attack. You no longer have to use the menu at the side. You do still need to enter buildings to construct anything, but the progress is shown on the screen, and when a building is ready to be placed, it will auto switch you to the place mode. Now, I'm not entirely sure that the new graphics are the best, and I think the buildings look a little nondescript. But overall, this is a very well done conversion, and is so much better than you might think.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Moving out.
On top of the units, each side also gets their own super weapon that comes in the form of a palace. The Harkonnen get the Death Hand missile, basically this game's nuke, and it's incredibly destructive, but it also has the worst aim. So it's great at concentrated areas of buildings, but if you're trying to take out a single one, well, you'll have to be very lucky. The Atreides get the Fremen. This will spawn a large number of well-armed units randomly on the map, and they will head to the nearest enemy base and attack it. I can't say they tend to do much against a well-defended base, but they can help. The Ordos get the Saboteur, a weakly armoured soldier holding an explosive charge. If you are skillful enough, you might be able to get them into the enemy base and blow up a building, but it tends to be very difficult to do. The Emperor, who shows up later as an enemy, well, they also have the Death Hand missile, but also their equivalent of the Fremen, the Sadukar. So trying to deal with multiple missiles and a large number of units at once can be difficult. Thankfully, you do have the mobile construction yards, so you can use that to build a second or a third base as far away from the enemy as possible.
Report. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
It's a bit of a shame that this hasn't seen a re-release on the digital stores, as while it can feel dated in places, it's still a landmark game and is very playable if you put your mind into the right space.
Reporting.
And that soundtrack,
Acknowledged.
wow, the music for this game is stunning. The way it ramps up and down as combat happens is great.
Atreides unit destroyed.
But just the overall sound and feel of the music just fits the game so well.
Reporting.
And while I continue to gush on about how good this game is, I think it's time to finish up.
Enemy
So if you played Dune 2 back in the day, I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, I was the Goldfish, that was the planet Arrakis, known as Dune. And this was Goldfish on Games.
Acknowledged.
Thanks for watching. I hope that if you got this far, you enjoyed the video. And if so, you might consider using the buttons underneath. You know the ones I'm talking about. Or possibly checking out some of the other game reviews that I've done, as there should be two options on the screen right now. And remember, the spice must flow.